love to be able to go out and run with somebody, and she has a lot of energy, so we'll loan her to you. So let us know. All right, you guys, let's get this going. This is the first mentor class. We would really like you guys to all be on screen. So unless you I don't know what you're doing, but if everybody could turn their cameras on, and if for some reason you can't right now, just know that next week we want you on camera. So and Sheila, it's okay, you're driving, so if you don't want to have your camera on, it's fine. Let's give you just a little bit of what we're trying to accomplish. We want to make the most of your time. We're going to be done at 1. Each week we're going to present somebody who can help teach you and help co-mentor with us and with your mentors. And this week we're really privileged to have Ben Smail's attention, who I would say is probably one of the consummate guys in creating a relationship and setting boundaries without being pushy to people or without looking like he's trying to be bossy. He aligns with people, walks right next to them immediately, and I'm not sure that people really ever walk away from you, Ben, because you establish trust so fast. So that's why we wanted Ben to give you that first introduction of here's how it's done, and here's what actually I was thinking about this morning, and here's what authenticity looks like. Whoever you are is good enough. You don't have to try and be somebody else. You be who you are and just make the most of it. Do the best you can by having everything that you can at your fingertips to be able to support people. And Ben, along with us, the rest of the instructors that we've asked to help us in these classes, I think represent that really, really well. Next week is Krista Luther, who's on my screen. You're right down below Ben. So I don't know where she is on the other ones, but Krista's going to talk about the purchase agreement, which will go with your first with your buyers. So many of you have already experienced purchase agreements, but we're just going to get it from another position, and then we're going to have conversations. So I want you to be thinking about questions. I want you to be thinking about, can you tell me more about this? Because this is going to be an interaction, and as much as you get out of it is what everybody puts into it. So we'll call on you, but this is about you, and any of the people that are mentoring can help you. This is not just you have one mentor and that's the only place you get input. Obviously, you know that if you've been working for Better Homes and Gardens for very long. So
can I chime in real quick? For those of the mentors, the experienced agents, we're kind of in a weird spot because we have the purchase agreement that we're going to go over next week, but the OABR is putting out a new version of the purchase agreement. They just gave it to us and it kicks in February 1st. Oh, wow. So the company is putting together some announcement going over the changes. But for you mentors, if you guys can be there next week, we will talk about those changes after we talk about the other things. So you'll get a sneak peek.
What I chatted with a little bit, Tim, I hadn't talked to you since then, with Krista about is the same exact thing, is that we want the ground floor level of here's what a purchase agreement looks like. Here's the strategies behind it. Here's the things you want to pay attention to. And then beyond that, then we'll say, and Tim will lead that conversation. So
yeah. I'll talk about the changes.
And Tim and I, as we said last week, we're not going to go over all that again. Tim and I are here to kind of pull ourselves up and make sure that this we kind of umbrella this and make sure everything stays running together. Rhonda is the bolt in the middle that holds it all together, and then all of you are what's going to make up this class. So what I wanted to get started with is kind of just passing this on to Ben. But before that, Tim, do you have anything else to add, or is there any housekeeping things that we need to do?
Not at the moment. I did want to talk about next week, which we just did, but other than that, nothing. I'm
Okay.
looking forward. Ben, thank you very much for putting together that video and the other ones you did as well. This was, for those of you that are new, you really are hearing from the best. Ben has been in the business for 5-6 years now, 7 years.
7, just finished 7.
Killing it.
7? Okay.
100 transactions in 2020. Good job. I mean, man,
Yeah.
that deserves the floor to you. So thank you so much, Ben.
And he didn't break a sweat, I don't think. I don't think.
I could not generate any more, or I would have done them. I just ran out of people. So.
Well, there's more, lots more to come. So, Ben, you want to take it and talk, go ahead, and then everybody can be thinking of questions, and otherwise I can get you started with a little bit of talking, but I think you can do this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I put a ton of that in the video very much on purpose, because that's the core content of the class. So I don't want to just spend the same 36 minutes repeating all the words I already spoke, because that was the point of the video. So I don't know, Carol, if there are some leading questions or others who watch the video have questions, because the video is there to watch into perpetuity. So I want to try not to repeat and maybe build on if there are specific questions. So what do you think, Carol?
What I would first like to know is what do you think would be a great goal for them to glean from having watched that video and then going through this class together? Should we maybe look to them for what is it that you are looking to get from this, and what will be the best things that come out of it for you, and maybe make a little list of that. So
sure. I think a good goal for all of us working with buyers is to have the courage, maybe for some, or just the commitment to not work with a buyer until the point that they come into your office. And I think that just has to become a habit. And if you don't force that upon yourself to then force that upon buyers, which is all done real skillfully and friendly, I do think it is very easy to fall into the habit of letting buyers, whether qualified or not, tell you what to do or pull you around. And I heard way back at the beginning in real estate, before I sold any transactions or sold anything, agents who said, hey, we use the phrase CTO, which we don't really use anymore, which means come into the office, to bring people into the office. And so I guess I didn't ever know a different way. And I just made a commitment, and I said, if that's the best practice, then I'm going to stick with that. And that's to bring a buyer to sit with you in a nice professional environment, so you can have a full conversation about what it means to buy a house. Of course, the alternative is you just leave your chair wherever you're at and drive anywhere someone tells you to without any information, and show them a house. And I recorded the video a few months ago. So I didn't really talk about safety, and that's not my motivation. To not want to take a buyer to a house is not my own safety, but even more so now with Mickey Sidoro, I think it's just even more important to make sure that people you are spending any time with, one, are trustworthy and safe. And then after that, basic need is that they're going to be ready, willing, and able. And I just don't think there's a better way to do it than sitting together in the office. It can be scary, I think, to tell a stranger on the phone who's very eager to see a property, no, I don't do it that way, or I refuse to show you a house unless you meet with me. And you, of course, would never say it that way. But I think that has to be a sort of a fundamental policy in your business. I did a lot of internet leads way back at CBS Home, and I converted more of those than anyone else. And I think it's because all of those leads are relatively low quality, but I trained the low quality leads to be better quality leads, instead of just being quick to run out and show them a property and we not like each other or like the property and never meet again. So that's a long-winded answer, but I would make a firm commitment.
No, it's perfect.
To have the courage to make the demand, skillfully. And the video really goes through the dialogue, the questions you ask leading up to inviting them to come into the office. So
What do you think is the most important question that you ask somebody inquiring?
have you developed a plan, or do you know how you're going to select a realtor you ultimately want to work with? And you can fumble around that question however you want, but we can get them approved. We can get them closer to their lease being up. We can get them to save the money that they need. That all takes time. What I want to do is be the one that they pick to do that with, or at least give me an option. So in the video, there's a couple questions leading into it, and then it's, have you interviewed several realtors, or made a plan for who you, or do you know who you're going to want to work with? And to me, that's the real critical mass, is planting this seed that speed is not important in a realtor. The random phone number you got off Zillow is not important. It's that you make an intentional decision as a consumer, and I'm inviting you to be intentional with me, and I'm teaching you how you should evaluate a realtor, also knowing that probably no one will put on the same show I do. So them evaluating other realtors, I think, just lifts me up a little bit in their mind. So I think that's the key question is, do you know how you're going to select your realtor?
Do you know how you're going to select a realtor? I think that's fantastic. Does anybody use that question up front?
So I have a little bit of a celebration. So Ben, I actually watched your video. Well, plus I hit the jackpot with my mentor, Ethan. So I've been able to kind of watch Ethan in action too. But Ben, I watched your video over the weekend before I did an open house on Sunday that was like hopping. And so I had a couple come through, and when you can just kind of sense that they're ready. So I posed some of the questions that you had provided in the video, and Ethan and I have an appointment with them at the office this afternoon. So
Great.
Oh, that's so amazing.
yeah. So
and did they fight you
and thanks
on
to
that,
you.
or did they fight you, or were they willing to just follow your lead?
No, not at all. I mean, I really just kind of worked to develop a relationship with them at first and just kind of talk to him about things that weren't even necessarily housing related. And then like he had an Iowa sweatshirt on. So we just were kind of joking a little bit about that. And then I just said, have you had a chance to talk with any realtors, or have you had a chance to work with any realtors yet to kind of get to know who's a good fit for you? And and they had said they had met with one, and I said, that's great. Like, it's a good idea to talk with several just so you can kind of get an idea of who's going to be the best fit for you. So, and then I just left it at that. I didn't like push anymore or anything like that. And then they just said, well, yeah, we'd really like to be able to sit down. So
Fantastic. That's
Very
great.
nice. I don't do open houses. One, I've gotten busy enough to want to keep Sundays for some fun activities. And when I did them for a year early on, I was pretty bad at them. So it wasn't very fruitful. And I think now what I know, if I could go back, I think I could build a whole business off of open houses. I just don't want to do that now. But I do think it's a lighter version of that video, those questions when someone's already called you and you're already talking real estate, a little bit less pointed version of that is I'll tell people, once it's maybe not going anywhere, or they're a year away, so it's like they're not going to meet with me now, I'll just say, hey, before you go, or do you mind if I give you just any advice at all, or can I make a recommendation to you? And most people say, oh, sure, that's pretty disarming. Can I just give you some good advice? And then I'll say, hey, when the time comes, I please encourage you to interview several realtors, find the person who's the best fit for you. But that phrase, hey, can I just give you a little guidance and counsel, or since you're here, can I make one recommendation? Because they're getting all the benefit, you're getting none of it. And I think it's very disarming and good presumed innocence to just say, hey, I just want to give you I'm not asking for your information. Because I think it does help the whole industry if in 3 decades from now, every consumer interviewed 3 realtors, because that's just how the process works. We'd all be better for it. So even if they don't interview me, they interview 3 and find the best one of those 3 people, then I think that's what we want. So I'll just say, can I give you that advice? And whether they follow it or not, I don't know. They're not meant to work with me, but I just think it's a nice way to tell people what to do when you say, can I give you a little advice?
So if there was one thing, when I think about this, if there was one thing, only one thing that I got really, really good at the beginning of my career, that would be open houses. If there was nothing else that I was really good at. If I was duck hunting and I wanted to be duck hunting in a duck pond, that's the same thing I would do if I was in real estate. I wouldn't duck, I wouldn't shoot a duck, but if I was, I would want to go where all the ducks were. And I've rebuilt my business twice, from Oregon to California to Nebraska. And the way that I did it was through open houses. And we just sold the fourth house to somebody I met at one of my first open houses I went to in Omaha when I didn't even know where I was. I knew geographically not anything about where I was. I was actually in Dundee. And so I would say that that is probably some of your best advice. And from Ben, I'm hearing that same thing is if you're going to have a place where you're having that first contact, getting all of that out and gathering that, being the trusted advisor right away is probably one of the most important things. So that is something that we will have a class on that's going to be pretty extensive, with at least one person who's really, really good at open houses. So,
and if you're going to do it, if you're going to give up 2 hours of what I'd rather go do is exercise for 2 hours and have some fun, is if I'm going to give that up to sit in an open house, I might as well give myself the greatest chance in 2 hours to make a contact. And that's what I sat for all the 2 hour times. I just gave myself no shot to persuade people to want to meet with me. I brought other listings and have you seen this listing down the street? And those are all supposedly best practices. And you print out flyers for other homes. And I had people teach me those things 7 years ago. But in the end of a year of open houses, I got one person out of it, and that's all over. And they say, well, isn't that worth it? No, it's not. Not 52 Sundays for one sale. That was not worth it. Because I certainly did not give myself the best chance. It's because I didn't have this ability to have just a normal conversation and plant the seed to interview realtors, and then they would lead me to meet at the office. So if you're going to do it, please do it right, or just go stay at home, because you'll get more out of your day than to just be a door opener for someone else's listing and letting strangers in. So low soapbox there.
Who on the call has done open houses? Who new agents have done open houses? You guys can unmute yourself and talk.
Well, some of them are brand new.
Okay.
Katie is absolutely killing it at open houses. People just love her. So she's going to get rich off those open houses this year.
Oh yeah.
Like Ethan, it was scary at first, but I was lucky Ethan went to a few with me to start off. So I kind of got my feet wet and figure out kind of how to do it. But I would definitely like a little bit more, kind of like what Ben was saying, just a little bit more structure with them and things like that too. So.
Well, and during this time, not that many open houses are going on, and so it's not actually something that's that easy to do. So, but life will come back to us, and it'll come around and take full circles. And I think you can, at any first meeting with somebody, when you're talking to them, you can glean the same dialogues and the same questions from what Ben is saying. So if you're not doing open houses and you're not feeling that that's a comfort level that you want, then there's other ways to exchange that same amount of communication. That I think most important, and I hear this from Ben, and he does it in a really lightweight kind of way, is to lay boundaries with people immediately. Like, number one is, here's how I work, and let's make sure that we are a good fit to work together. And I know that's a hard thing to say when you're new and you're hungry, but here's how I work. Really, people are so scattered with their attention being drawn in so many different directions that the most basic thing that you can do is let them know that you're going to help them. You're going to help them. They're going to have a house at the end of this if they want one. And here's the way that we get there in the most organized way that takes the least amount of your time and frustration. And that is how you introduce your own boundaries, which, Ben, I think yours are really, really clear. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I guess maybe I'm setting boundaries without realizing, but I think I do it through some guidance and education on what will make this process most fruitful. So in the video and the line of questioning, I figure out they're a first time buyer, great, or they even come to me as a referral and they simply say, hey, I think we're ready to buy a house. What should we do? If someone asks you that question, that's the easiest one. It's getting the open house person or the sign call to basically get to the point where they say, obviously I'm a buyer, but what should I do next? That's the real skill, is the stranger converting them to where they're ready to do what you tell them next. So practice on the easy ones, the friend and the family that says, I'm ready to buy, what should I do? But then I think I'm setting boundaries, I guess, without even realizing, through education. When I'm telling them, I find that the best first thing to do when you're ready to buy a house is we would find a time to sit down together, because there's a lot of things I want you to know, and I want you to be very informed consumer, so you make the very best decisions. So in your best interest, I want you to know what this process is like, what your timing's like, all the costs involved, the specifics of the house you're looking for. And then as we're together, I'll talk about all things inspections, appraisals. And so maybe just in that conversation, it is sincerely in their best interest to not get too excited and rush out to a house. It's to back up, slow down, and sit down with a realtor that's going to educate them. I get so little kickback on that, even from strangers on the sign calls. And so I wonder if it would be helpful to the class if I'd like to hear difficulties you're having in that, because I think the video tells you should do these things, and that's repeated all throughout the video. But if you've had issues doing that, or have concerns doing it, or there's hurdles to successfully bringing something into the office, maybe a discussion about what difficulty you had and how I'd like to give you a little advice, because the video is pretty boilerplate. But if you have a scenario or want advice on what you should have done, I don't know, Carol, maybe that is an appropriate use, because the video has it all. I mean, I very much said those words in the video on purpose, so you could never speak to me again and get enough of the content, in there. I didn't leave much out of it, or tried not to. So does anyone have difficulty or concerns or objections that you're receiving when you encourage people to meet you at the office? Because I'd love to straighten those out.
Yeah, unmute yourself, or did somebody just unmute everybody?
I think Katie.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody, but so Ethan's given me a few Zillow leads, so people that I call, and I've had a little bit of success, but I guess more. But sometimes when I call them, I'm not quite sure kind of how to lead into the conversation with the internet lead. This person is not even seeing me, doesn't know me from anybody else. So what do you do to not get hung up on? Because that's happened.
Is this like a sign call for a property, or just a click here to inquire with the realtor?
The one
which one is it?
Yeah, the one that I feel like I struggle with the most is the inquiring about a property that then Ethan then lets me call, and then a lot of times the people just think that I'm trying to sell them something, and that's not my intention. But then so I've been hung up on and things like that. So maybe it's something I'm doing,
Right.
maybe just the way they're at it. I don't know.
I mean,
I think. Go ahead, Ethan.
oh, I was just gonna say I know a lot of people hate the Zillow leads and stuff, but I found what I was coached on was just, you got to get in front of these people, and you got to get that face to face. And the buyer meeting is a great way to do that. And I mean, obviously, we're being a little bit careful just meeting people and showing them a house right off the bat. So we want Kate, like when Katie or myself does that, we might bring our spouse with us or somebody else with us as backup. But just, I think getting in front of them, getting that face to face, and then setting those expectations like you're talking about is the best way to capture that client.
The CETO that Ben talked about. Yeah. Who else?
For that sign call, Katie, I would just say, obviously they called about a property, and so it's, hey, thanks for your interest in the house. And all you have to do is sort of introduce that you've called them about the house. and they say, oh yeah, I'm excited, or my wife and I just drove by, or whatever. And then you launch into leading to the, I know I'm going to invite them to the office. They don't. So how quickly can I steer the conversation there? So like in the video, it is a great house. Is this your first home? It could be a horrible house. It's just, you say a word and then you say, is this your first home? Yeah, it is, you know, or we just came out of new to the area. Oh, great. Where are you from? I mean, it could have nothing to do with real estate. We're just conversing, like you mentioned in the open house. You ask, have you been looking for a while, or is this like the very first house you've called upon? We're slowly breaking them in. You know, they've been looking for a while. Oh, great. How many homes have you seen, or have you been seeing those homes? Is that all open houses, or did you called me out of the blue? Have you been doing that? Again, breaking them in so you can say, you know, I find, you know, the very best thing to do in your guys' situation is to find a realtor who's a good fit to work with and interview several. So I think for your specific sign call, what a great house. Is this your first house? Have you been looking for a while? How are you seeing those homes? Hey, do you know once you find the right house, the realtor you're going to work with? And there's some versions of that. But again, it's so that I can drop the bomb of let's meet together. And again, that's what that video goes through. So sometimes the hardest part is just getting on track of the conversation. But I find out, oh, is this your first home? A pretty disarming question. And they're usually pretty excited about it. And once they start talking, you keep asking questions, you're really off to the races. And in about 3 minutes with a total stranger, more or less, I find I can have them invited into my office if you just are tactful with those questions you ask.
It's a great dialogue.
I have a question.
Kathy, go ahead.
Not exactly on topic since I haven't. I'm going to show how very new I am. I haven't had these conversations.
It's great.
But I was wondering, first of all, your presentation was wonderful and I got a lot out of it. So thank you for that. One question I had was what tangible do you have with you when you go to these presentations? Do you have a presentation, like a formal slideshow? Do you have them sign a buyer's agreement, disclosures? Like what's in your hands on this day?
Sure. So when they come into the office, I do have a buyer packet that's real branded to me, and it's, you know, I put that together. I will always give that out. Please do not feel like you cannot meet with a buyer if you don't have one of those put together. Last year, I had to do a whole new rebranding because me and a different person had worked together and we separated. So we each developed new brands. So all through January and February, I felt a little stuck because I had no handouts at all. I thought that was going to be an issue. And I realized those people were none the wiser that they would have gotten a packet if it was a month from now. The whole deal was solidified by the kindness in my voice and the words that I said to them. That's what mattered. I could have given them the best packet on earth and just been a total jerk or not giving them good information, and it wouldn't have mattered. So the way you speak and the words you say to them, that's all that really matters. This little flimsy stack of paper is like 1%, you know, little extra on top. So don't feel like you can't start until you have those things, because it was a good lesson for me that people hired me because what I say to them, not what I give them. So I'm glad you asked that question.
That's a
and by exclusive buyer agency. No, I never use those. I say never. I've used one time because it was just a bizarre scenario where we got in a few days, and I finally they kept jumping between realtors but I'm going to say I never use an exclusive buyer agency. You probably heard in your real estate classes, there's the agency disclosure that's required to be explained to people. I have that. I make them sign it. That's required by the commission. I will specifically say, and there is another sheet of paper. It is not here. And I put my hand next to it like I'm demonstrating it's there, called an exclusive buyer agency. I explain that binds you to me, where you have to use me, even if you think I'm the most horrible realtor. I don't have that. I will never have that. I never want to use those things. I just say my hope is I take care of you well enough, and in our time together, you find I'm the right fit. And when the right house comes along, you allow me to represent you on the purchase agreement. And that document is what solidifies me being paid to help you buy a house. And I might, it puts me at risk some. And I think realtors, out of fear that their buyers are going to find another realtor, want to lock them into a contractual agreement today. And I'll even say, I don't need to bind you to me like other realtors feel like they need to. I just want to take care of you well enough. But me having the conversation on the phone and bringing them to the office and giving them 93 minutes of professional guidance and counsel is exactly locking them in to work with me. Even if it's 10 months from now, I have bound them to myself because of the service I provided. I don't need flimsy sheets of paper to do that. So that's just my best practice, is to really speak out against the use of that, because I want to prove to you I'm good enough. But that's just me. I never use those things, but
I do the same thing, Ben. And one of the things that I say to them, and it gives a very good confirmation on kind of validating to them that you're good for your word, is I say the same thing. This is not, I don't have this page in here because I don't use it. Never have wanted, don't want to be in a relationship that somebody doesn't want to be in with me. I don't want to be bound. I don't want you to be bound to me. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll figure this out. And then I say to them, I always say to them, I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you that we are making a commitment of our time to take care of you as one of our active buyers right now. We work with X amount at a time that are active and need to buy a house right now and are willing to pull the trigger. And all we're asking from you is that you make that same verbal commitment back to us. Your word's good, our word's good. We've made a bond that way, and that establishes, believe me when I tell you something. So unless you don't do it, but I hate personally, I just hate operating that way, because I don't want somebody to think they have to pay me, because it's miserable going through that. So Ethan, you wanted to say something. I saw both your hands were in the air, or were you cheering for the game or something?
Oh, I was just cheering for what somebody said. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Kathy, did that answer your question for you? All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Somebody else that's new. What are you struggling with, or what do you want to hear from? What do you want to hear from Ben, or have him go further on? I'd really like to hear before we end this call from each one of you guys. Paul?
Hey,
Yeah.
hey Ben, thanks for the video, and I apologize if somebody already asked about this. My Zoom's been cutting in and out, but loved your video. Awesome stuff. I think at one point though, you mentioned once they do come in for the appointment, you had a checklist of things that you went through. I just wondered if that's actually formal, and if it is, if it's something that you could share. I'm just super interested in processes and checklists that I don't have to, think up from scratch.
Sure. Yeah, maybe I use the word checklist. I'd have to rewatch to know for sure, but there is an itinerary for the time together. I do have a buyer questionnaire that allows me to take notes.
Yep.
Partially because I'm demonstrating that I care enough about you to write down the things you're saying, but that has all sorts of pretty generic questions. One, it's their personal information. Please get their address. That was hung up on getting their home address for a very long time because I thought they think that's weird that I want to know where they live when they don't even know me. But it's because I want to send them a thank you note. So that's real important. But it's how long have you been looking? Some of this I established over the phone, a few months online or whatever. That's kind of the answer is not terribly important. What are you looking for? Where are you looking to buy? They always have, geographical things. Have you seen homes you like? How soon do you want to move in? Have you talked with other realtors? Have you talked with lenders? Have you been pre-approved? What do you want to spend? What price do you want to buy at? What house characteristics? So part of the conversation is that me gathering information from, that just take a note about another section of the conversation is me doing a cost sheet for them where I'm talking them through all the costs involved. So what are down payment products like, and what are the closing costs? I usually will prepare a cost sheet for them based on a question I ask them over the phone, which is so that I can do a little homework for us before you come in. What do you just kind of think you want to spend? And that they could be completely off base on that number. I just want to, if they're going to spend $350, I don't want to prepare a scenario for $150 or vice versa, just because it misses the mark. So there's the question gathering, There's the financial, going through that explanation. And then there's and now I just want to tell you everything that's going to happen between now and the day you get the keys to your new house. Obviously over the phone, I told them I'd talk them through the process. So then I'm going to set up a search through the MLS. We're going to look at homes together. I'll point out the nerdy stuff and the age of things. We'll do the offer together, and it's accepted, earnest deposit, inspection proceedings, appraisals, termite, title work, walkthrough, get to closing. So there's the questions I ask them. There's the financial explanation. There's the explanation of the process. And then I guess the fourth part, and it always goes in that order, is, I need to share this with you. It's the agency disclosure that the commission expects that. So like, those are the ingredients that I need to have for a successful meeting. Is they know the money, I know about their home desires, they know the process, they sign my agency disclosure. And anyone's more than welcome to attend one of these with me at any time. If you just email me and say, hey, add me to your next one and let me know when it's going to be, you can come watch it, and it'll all be demonstrated the same way. So does that answer your question, Paul? Like, that's kind of the 4 pieces checklist per se, those four things.
Paul,
Yeah,
if you're looking for something in writing that would outline all that, we have several things that have been honed down into being really, really a good piece of paper that you can go by, at least to start to develop your own. There's also places in it. Actually, Tim and I just got some copies, and we'll have Rhonda send it over to you for the buyer interview questions. And then there's an extension of that to start gathering things like birthdays and kids. Writing down kids' names is really important. All that stuff, as much as you can gather to build your database, your CRM information, is great. But all those basic questions are just conversational that Ben's talking about. But obviously he's done it enough times that he just rattles them off. But if
you email me, Paul, I'll send you mine too. Just if anyone wants it, if you send me an email.
Yeah.
It's not top secret. It's just, it's the stuff you have to know anyways. There's no trade secrets with how many bedrooms do you want in your next house. But I think Sheila had a question too.
Sheila.
I do, really quickly. So at my buyer's appointments, I typically, in walking through the process, I'm walking through the purchase agreement, because that takes you through a lot of the pieces and parts of the process. Do you ever do that, Ben? Or did you at one time and decide that wasn't super efficient? Can you speak to that?
I never have. I just think because it's already 90 minutes long. And so sometimes, but to add another 25 minutes of explanation, I think that's purely why I've never done it. I will do it when the time comes to write an offer. I would be more efficient at writing offers if I already got the explanation out of the way the first time together, but I just feel like I can't add a 5th ingredient, let's say, to the time together, or it just would be too long. So, I mean, have you always done it, and are you going to keep doing it, you think?
I have, and I kind of go back and forth. Mine end up being about 90 minutes as well, but I probably incorporate where you're talking about the process. I've eliminated that piece per se, because as I'm walking through the purchase agreement, I'm talking about the process, because it's hitting on the inspection, it's hitting on appraisal,
Right.
So I am hitting on those things. And I've found, for me, then it makes writing that first offer much easier on my people, just because they've already seen the documents. But sometimes I'm like, okay, is it just too much for their heads? And I am very upfront at the buyer's appointment that I'm going to give you so much information, and I don't expect you to remember really any of it. But as we start going through the process, when we're writing an offer, or as we're walking through a house, and I say something, it'll click. You'll remember, oh yeah, I remember hearing something about that. Maybe not every piece and part about it, and just let them know that I continue to educate along the way, and that education, that knowledge is power.
Sheila, do you give them a blank purchase agreement when like everything you say? Do you tell them, hey, you don't have to worry about remembering all this, it's going to be in your packet? Like more.
I do. I give them
packet serves.
I give them a buyer's packet that just kind of walks through the steps. So if they want to look at that and refresh, and then I give them the folder with all of the purchase documents in it. And I just I go through the purchase agreement
Yeah.
and then I hit on each of those documents and I send it with them so that they have a copy of it as well.
Yeah, and I think that's important, like as an upfront of to kind of add on to what you said, Ben, about having a packet or not having a packet. If you let them know that, don't worry, we're not going to go through all of this stuff today. This isn't, when we finish talking and I've fire hosed you with information, you can go back and say, oh, that's the piece that I remember. Krista, you want to talk?
Well, I was just going to jump in and say that, Sheila, I also do the purchase agreement on our first meeting, and I'm about 90 minutes. So we must just all just do it in a different way. But I always tell my clients, I'm going to go over this very fast, but because we're in such a fast paced market for buyers, I do feel like it's important that, I mean, I still go over it with them when we're in the process, but I don't want that to be the very first time they've seen a purchase agreement. It's 10 pages of a legally binding contract. So I feel like I go through it fast. And at the end of my buyer's consult paperwork, I literally have a page that says like, wow, that was a whole lot of information, but don't worry, I've got you every step of the way.
That's great.
So
Would it be helpful, Krista, to have, like you did a recording for us on the purchase agreement? Like, what about if you did one for, that
That's
you
a
used
great
for your
idea.
buyers and followed your meeting up with that?
What a horrible video for them to watch. I would lose every
come
buyer
on.
I have. I apologize, you guys. I already did it last week, but I'm going to apologize again. That purchase agreement video is going to be really boring.
It's
Ethan,
not.
were you going to say something?
I had a quick question. So we're kind of talking about a particular kind of buyer. Do you, if you have savvy buyers, people that have bought from you before, you don't do your whole spiel over, you just modify it, right? Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, or I'll do it over the phone, like, hey, your best buddy, they bought their house 3 years ago. It's like, we see each other 10 times a year anyways, because we're friends. I'll just say, hey, let me just bear with me, remind you how this all worked last time. So yes, I will cut it shorter as the person has need. As most of my business is people doing it for the very first time.
Okay.
So I'll do it that way. Or if there are people out of town, I'll do it over the phone. I don't do very many investors, which oftentimes are the type that already know way more than I do, and they don't need any of my guidance or help. Thankfully, I don't attract a lot of those. But I still feel like I have to get in a few things because it really stinks to, 3 weeks down the road, they want to buy a house and they found the right one. And you're saying, hey, the earnest deposit needs to be $2,000. And they're thinking it should be $500. Or, hey, you do realize homes go over list price. You're not going to nickel and dime these sellers for a house. So I've said it before, any advice given when there's no house on the line or advice given up front when there's nothing to gain or nothing to lose is just helpful information. But when you wait until the moment that they're ready to buy this house and you say, I know it's 145, but you should go pay 155. That sounds like you're enticing them to do something they don't want. And that's a very hard position to give someone difficult advice when you stand to make money in the next hour, basically, if they comply with what you tell them. So even I'll give just the most narrowed down version, only so it doesn't feel like I'm telling them things that seem counterintuitive to them when they, right as they're about to make a purchase. But yeah, it can be changed and shortened or elongated for whoever needs it. But Ethan, did you have something to chime in? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it's just something I want to add, for you new people. It took me 14 years to learn this. When you get rejected or these buyers use somebody else, show grace, be kind about it. Sorry, my might have cut out there. Show grace, be kind about it. I'm working with 2 clients right now, actually. I pinned one this week, and both of them there were referrals from people who used somebody else. So, but somehow or another, they ended up referring me business after the fact. So just, even if that buyer rejects you, new people, be kind, show grace. There's a chance they're going to move again, and they know lots of people. and they may have a terrible experience with their realtor and wish they had used you. So
Also, let's talk a little bit about the difference between your process has been interaction wise between something that comes from a colder lead and something that comes from referral. I want you to talk about how you make sure to stay in contact with the referrer. How do you keep the referrer's name in your conversations with new buyers, et cetera?
Yeah, I think anytime you get a referral buyer or seller, you would immediately go to the referrer and give them a thank you, because it's not top secret. Hopefully everyone's doing this. You're rewarding the referrer for the behavior of thinking of you. And so that's real important. And then because that's already a building block, you have a mutual relationship. I tend to talk about, how do you know so-and-so, or, oh, you went to high school together. I mean, you just have an instant rapport building tool because you have someone that they know and that you know. And then even I just had some buyers who just feel a little skeptical of the advice I'm giving them. I feel, even though we've met together. So when it came to recommend home inspectors, I said, hey, this is even who Kevin used. This was who referred me. Kevin really loved him. And so then I'm just sort of softening the advice I'm giving because someone else knows me, trusts me, referred me, went through the same experience with me. So yeah, I think that's a very helpful building block. But a thank you to the referrer, whether they hire you or not, is extremely important. So
good point. Always acknowledge the referral, not the results. Not necessarily, I mean, you're gonna acknowledge the results too, but acknowledge the referral, because a big piece of your business as you go along could be a big percentage of your business could come from a very small part of your database of people. Brian Buffini talks about at the height of his business, he was doing a lot of business, and 42% of his business came from 18 clients out of the hundreds that purchased, bought and sold homes from him. So 42%. So those people, and you're going to learn more about that as we go along. In 100 Days to Greatness, you're going to learn all of this stuff really at such a high level that it's going to be super helpful. And you'll hear this over and over and over again. So great point, Ben. Somebody else.
What other technical questions does anyone have, or add-ons from the video? Because I want this to be more helpful to you than to me.
Hey, Scott, how new are you?
Scott is very new. I have kind of a lack of perspective for these buyer meetings and stuff. I do have a couple coming up, and I was actually just getting ready to chime in when you called me out, so I appreciate that. One of them is, and Ben, you touched on this on the video too. There's a father and a young lady involved, and what they expect and think is important out of the house is kind of misaligned. And I was wondering how you kind of bring those expectations a little more parallel.
Go right into the deep end, Scott.
Is the dad buying it and the daughter's going to live in it? Is that the scenario?
He's providing some of the money for it, and it's going to be the daughter's house. She's off to college, and it'll be her house. He's involved in the buying process. It is her house.
Oh, okay. Are they both going to come? Would they both meet with you together, or is it just the dad is like more silent contributor?
I don't know. I hope so. He's out of town a lot. I actually just got this referral the day before yesterday, and she already wanted to go look at a house. I talked to her yesterday at noon. She said, "Can you meet me at 5:30?" So she's already kind of wanting to shove it into high gear.
Sure.
Which I understand the way the market is. I totally understand where she's coming from. She's probably been watching it and seeing houses that she likes disappear rather quickly.
I guess a few things. Shove it into high gear. That is a real challenge because buyers wait until they're behind almost to then identify a realtor, and they want you to catch up and meet them at the house in an hour from now. They've been thinking about for 2 days when they should have been talking to you 2 months before. So I empathize with you for that, because that can be a challenge. It is very important that you get that time to meet together, because she knows nothing about buying a house. She just sees the house she wants to see. Once you see the first, there's going to be a second, third, and you'll get to the 10th one, and then she'll say, make this offer for me. And then you'll have imparted no guidance or counsel with nothing on the line. And then you're telling her at that moment, your inspections will be modified and high prices. And, so I would caution you to rein her back in if you can. And because it's so important, we sit down together, so we're all on the same page. There's a ton of stuff for you to know, and I want to teach you that. And if you have to make a concession and look at one because she's just raring to go, I would say it may sell today, so we got to see it. But I do want to then go back to the office or meet at the office first, because once you start just showing them houses, which is what they want, it's hard to flip it back to how you want it. So it's a little cautionary there. And then I do always ask a buyer, and I've mentioned in the video, are there other people who are important in making this decision or who are going to participate with us? Because the thing I don't want is she picks the house or the child, the new buyer, because the kitchen's so great and that's all they care about. Dad comes in from out of town. Great. Here he is after the inspection or right before you make the offer. And dad bought his home 39 years ago when homes cost 1/10 the price, and his expectations are off. And it's just, that's also the recipe for disaster. So I would try to meet with them together, or at least prepare the buyer for that. If your dad is important, I should be talking with him too, because that's a real slippery slope, is the dad contributor with a silent opinion that becomes not so silent. So I would try to get them both together, or at least prepare just the buyer, that we really, your dad's going to have a lot of influence in this. So what's his expectations? How heavy is his opinion going to weigh on you? Like, you kind of got to know the stakes, because it can lead to some real heartache. I'm sure other agents can speak to that. When the
Brian
dad
calls it the silent assassin.
I will say from my experience, when you have a parent or somebody else who's kind of come in, and like Ben says, bring them in as early on as possible, but you just have to really stick to that parent, just like you win them over. If you win them over, then they'll trust you, and then they'll leave you alone. And because then they know that you've got your child's best interest at heart. And really quick, while I've got the floor, because I completely believe in CETO. Come into the office. It's so important. But to Ben's point, when it's really, really hard and I just can't get them to come in the office, or it just was moving too fast, I will compromise and do it in the kitchen of a house. But I will say, we need to stop and take this time and take 30 minutes to have this conversation. And I'll do an abbreviated version. And I'll even tell them this isn't the way we normally do it, but I won't go farther unless I at least have 30 minutes to get to know each other. So,
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Paulina.
Okay, great. So my microphone works.
Yes, it does.
Great. So we just went through the exact same thing. Dad is in Kansas. He's putting 100% of the money. The daughter is in Omaha, and she's going to live in the house. So he wanted to be part of everything. So our first conversation was over the phone, about an hour and a half, so that worked out fine. He started coming to every showing, but then he realized that he can, in this market, he needed to be here now, not tomorrow or Saturday. And then, so eventually he backed off from that. And that was also affecting the relationship with him and the daughter, because the daughter was frustrated because she couldn't find a house. And whenever the dad showed up, he would just say, no, not this one, not that one. So eventually he understood, he backed off. He totally trusted us with, like you were saying that then about the trust in us, that we're taking good care of her. And he 100% backed off. He came for closing. No, he came to the inspection and then for closing, and that was it. Now he wanted to back out of the house right after closing. So that's how stressed he was.
Oh, wow.
But I said, no, the driveway is correct. That's fine. I said, oh, thank you so much for talking me off the ledge. But they trusted 100% in our knowledge of houses and the process. So you got to establish that relationship, Scott. And I know you're new, but you know houses. You just got to show that in your first meeting with him. And also bring up that you're going to have to do walkthroughs over the phone. You're going to have to do FaceTimes or something like that, because he's not going to be able to come to town just to look at a house every time they want to see one.
Yeah.
So, and it worked out great at the end.
It was stressful, but it worked out great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paulina. Hey, we're at 1 o'clock and this could go on for like probably 4 or 5 hours, but we will continue to have these conversations in the same way. And Ben, anytime you can jump on any of our calls that we have weekly right now, that would be fantastic. Next week, we have Krista Luther and the purchase agreement. Thank you, every one of you that showed up for yourselves here. Really appreciate it. I hope you guys all got something out of it. We would love your feedback. Just send off a text or an email, actually send through that email your feedback, any questions that you have. This is an ongoing conversation. You've opened the door to an amazing amount of knowledge that will be here and investing in you because we all want everybody to succeed. So Tim, do you have any last?
Yeah, the last I want to say is, first of all, thank you all the mentors that showed up today.
Yes.
This is really great. And, this is, you help keep the conversation going and help the new agents. And this
As a
your
bonus.
expertise is just fantastic. So this was a fantastic first class, really. I mean, because that's really what this was. This was our first one. Last week was just starting it up. So I'm just so real happy about it.
So thank you everybody also for kind of bearing with us because this is our first presentation of this format and we're going to make it be really good. But I probably struggled a little bit to make sure we've got the right rhythm going, but I think we have a picture of what it looks like. Krista, you feel comfortable with how this is going to go next week for you?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Sure, but I hope you guys have a lot of questions because I don't think you want me to go over the purchase agreement again.
Well, I think it's going to be filled with questions and because every single piece, and I don't think it's a one-time shot. I think every single piece of the purchase agreement is most important. And the most important thing that I want you to address, Krista, is that the words that people use and how the clients listen to them and they will hold you to it. So if you don't know what you're talking about, say, I'm going to get back to you. That's probably the keys to the kingdom, especially when it has to do with purchase agreements. So I want to talk a little bit about the legality stuff in the purchase agreement to be held to. And a question that I always filter is, if I had to defend this in court, do I have a good good trail of information and proof? So we'll talk about those things next week, but fantastic. Ben, I love you. You're just, I love how you do business and thank you so much for offering your time because I know it's valuable. So, and everybody else that was here. So
Let me
Can
know
I
if
make
you
one
want to
last
accompany
quick-
me to something.
Right, yeah.
What?
And I just have a lot of experience with that.
Who-
Sheila.
okay.
Yeah, sorry, hang on, let me step out of here. I just wanted to make one last parting comment to all the new people. Ben gave you so much incredible information and you'll take pieces and parts and you'll put it into your presentations at different times, but give yourself some grace because you won't nail it the first time. And every time you do it, you'll get a little bit better. And I think that's important to remember so you don't get down on yourself. Because we've all
Thank
been
you.
there and it gets better each and every time.
And our joint emails are mentor at Better Omaha and mentee at Better Omaha, correct? They're not plural, right, Rhonda?
She's trying.
I know.
I think that's right. Mentor at Better Omaha and mentee at Better
Yeah.
Omaha.
Okay, super.
I think
All
that's
right, you guys. Have a
Okay.
great week.
Thank you.
We'll
Bye,
be
everybody.
talking to you in
Yeah.
between. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tomorrow, join us tomorrow for some good stuff from Jennifer Magilton at ATA, 12 o'clock. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.